I want to be, I'm open to being to an extent for being two or four people that I never had. Right. Meaning, I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have time. I'm sitting there trying to, in my mind, I'm trying to survive. I didn't realize how much money I was making. Why? Because I just had my head down. I didn't have a money goal. I didn't have any of these goals. My goal was to maximize every moment that I was not sleeping.
Property insurance for real estate investors doesn't have to be difficult, but it does need to be there to protect you when you need it. MyInvestorInsurance.com not only provides insurance at 15 to 30% cheaper than traditional agencies, it's built specifically for real estate investors like you. You can set up an account in about 2 minutes, get quotes on properties, turn on and turn off insurance for your fix and flip or rental properties in around 2 minutes without having to talk to anyone directly, all through our portal. There's no better way or faster way to make sure you've got the coverage you need to protect you, and no more lengthy policies either. Once you're set up, you're billed monthly and prorated by the day for however long your policy is active. It's powered by MSI, the third largest independent MGA, with 1.5 million customers and more than $1 billion in cumulative premiums written. Get set up today in about 2 minutes at myinvestorinsurance.com/fuel.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Estate Pros Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Crabb with Investor Fuel, and today I'm joined by Blayne Rush out of Dallas. Blayne is the owner of Rush Homes, among other things, but what really stuck out to me is Blayne's story. We chatted a little bit before this, and he told me that at one point he was homeless. He was labeled as learning disabled. He was told he's never going to be able to, do an awesome career. You're going to have to go get in the trades and stuff. And he went from that to building what he has today. And I'd love to talk more about that, how he's done what he did, and also where investors leave money on the table, especially with taxes and what it kind of looks like to do some of the transitions that he's doing. Blayne, so glad to have you on today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Cody. I appreciate you guys taking the time to chat today.
Of course, yeah. So I love diving in with the intro, with kind of your backstory. But in your case specifically, I'm curious, can you give us kind of a snapshot of Blayne in this kind of environment where before everything changed for you?
Yeah.
What did your life look like? What you said, you were homeless at one point. Like, I'd love to kind of just get a mental picture of what it was like before.
Yeah. So I grew up in Louisiana. Mom came to the States when she was 10. My dad was an orphan. He hadn't even finished the 9th grade. And we grew up in a 40-foot trailer on a gravel road. And in grade school, I was labeled as a learning disabled kid. Interesting. So there's a little story. I think a lot of people, at least our age, look back and say, hey, we had these 20 spelling words that we had to take, right? So you have these spelling tests and there's 20 words. Well, they said, or the teacher, if I got 10 of them right, I got 100. So it was 50%. And,
Wow.
So that's what they thought of me back then. And so
Gotcha, yeah.
I went through that, and, we struggled and whatever, cheese, free lunch kid, all that type of stuff. And then sports. I was a high school football player, and I was pretty good. And so I was able to go to college, based off of a scholarship.
Okay.
And then so later on, I struggled to find where I belong. And, I kept getting education. So I ended up with 2 master's degrees at this point in time. I was 30 years old and broke. I had nothing. I was $5 broke at 30 years old.
So, okay. So this is I feel like we're about to hit a moment of change here. So I'm guessing this is the point where real estate entered the picture. Is that right?
Yeah. So what's interesting is, so I'm looking at, I moved to Dallas because of Dallas, meaning the opportunity, young professionals and that type of stuff. And, what's the world? And it's closest thing to Louisiana, or where I was in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And so I move over here. I'm in a operations role, and I'm not an operator. And people that are in corporate and in those environments understand what that is. I'm more aggressive and more rigid and all that type of stuff. And so that didn't last. And I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? So I finished my MBA here in Dallas, and then my buddy is selling this meat door to door. And I'm talking the guy with the pickup truck knocking on doors. Here I am with 2 master's degree. I got to do something. So I'm looking.
Stop living on an island and join the #1 mastermind in America for professional real estate investors. Investor Fuel is a community of hundreds of the nation's top investors working together to build stronger businesses and better lives. In addition to the amazing community of real estate investors acting as a board of advisors for one another, Investor Fuel members have access to 100% funding on purchase and repairs for our members only, a health insurance program, and benefits and discounts that more than pays for the membership of most of our members, meaning it's actually costing you money to not be a member of Investor Fuel. If you're looking to scale your business and build a business that allows you to live the life of your dreams, please visit investorfuel.com today and book a call with our team.
And I had 2 job opportunities. One was in Richmond, Virginia. And you're talking to a guy that grew up outside of a town that had less than 60,000 people.
And that was the bustling hub there.
Yeah.
As you lived outside of that.
I lived outside of that in the country, right? So I'm looking at the map. So I have this opportunity in Richmond, Virginia, some vice president's job, some health preventive medicine, because that was my background. And then I had this opportunity in Iowa to be like a COO of some clinics, some primary care clinics in rural areas, that type of stuff. And I'm looking at this map and I start crying. I'm like, I can't do this. That's a long way. I barely made it. I barely made it up I-35 to get to Dallas. I was scared as shit, man. I've never been on a road that big and that fast and whatever. So I'm like, I can't do this. I'm not moving again. So I started selling this meat door to door. And so I'm doing that. I knock on this door. It's an older lady, I don't know, 60, whatever. She had some arthritis, whatever, walk funny. And I had already been reading a lot of real estate investing books, just soaking it in like a sponge, keeping Amazon.com in business.
You saw the opportunity and we're kind of like, I should get some of this in
Yeah,
here.
because it's like the way I looked at it, it's the way that a poor guy can become wealthy. And so I knock on this lady's door. She buys some meat and we're talking. And she tells me that she's a real estate investor. I said, oh, really? So I perk up. And she had like 3 houses, right? And back then, these HUD houses, repos, they had a single key for all the houses. They were all keyed the same. So she had some real estate agent had given her a key. And so she had a key to these houses. She said, hey, you go find houses and whatnot, and you drive, and I'll go with you, right? And so I go get on the computer, researching, and whatever. I find a couple of houses. I don't remember, but I found this house. And so we go look at it, and it's a nice house. She said, you're going to buy it. And then, it's that psychology. You're going to buy this. Whoa, 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 whoa. I ain't buying this. I don't know what, And she said, then the reverse psychology said, you're going to buy it or I'm going to buy it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy it. I'm selling meat door to door. I have a couple of master's degrees, but what the hell do I have? So I'd been dating this lady, this gal, whatever, for a few months. And she was the opposite of me, meaning very well grounded, had a great job. I come to find out at that time, like 80,000 or 401k. I never seen 80,000. I didn't even know what the hell 80,000. I'm like, what the hell? That's like rich.
Yeah.
And she has a .com job. She's making 6 figures back then, like in 1.
That's saying something. Yeah.
And she had just bought a house. So I'm talking to her and we're 3 months in, 2 months in, something like that. And I'm talking to her about this house, this and that. And she agrees to buy it with me because I couldn't buy it otherwise. I couldn't qualify. So we bought it at 10% interest. 10%. Everybody crying about the interest rate. I bought that son of a bitch at 10%.
Yeah, that may be one of the bigger ones I've ever heard, honestly. That's
right.
wild.
Well, because I was on it. But anyway, so we're both on it. And I buy it. And I end up moving in with her. We end up getting married and all that stuff too later on. So I move in and then I try to go get this job. I was a headhunter and it was 100% commission. And anyway, that house was cash flowing $400 a month. So my note was principal, interest, tax, and insurance was $1,000, right? Easy round math. I don't know. And I was getting like $1,450 a month. So it's cash flowing. And so I'm at this commission only job. I'm working 80, 90 hours a week, getting paid minimum wage, whatever that was, $7 back then, for 40 hours. So that $450 a month saved me.
If you're looking for consistent, high-quality leads, look no further than Investor Machine. Investor Machine isn't just another agency. It's the most sophisticated, data-driven lead generation company on the planet for real estate investors, and serves the role of being not just a lead generator for your business, but a marketing partner that is helping you achieve your goals along the way. Go to investormachine.com to learn more and schedule a call with our team today.
So there was a couple of years that I did not buy any house. I'm trying to get established because it took me 9 months to catch any ground. And here's a point I'll make for a side note is that I was packing my shit at that company. It wasn't working for me. I'm sitting there saying my soul was broken because, dude, I was working 80 hours a week, if not 100 at that point in time. And it just wasn't catching, just wasn't going. Well, this young kid walks by and he says, "Hey, you're going to be rich one day." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Literally, what the fuck are you talking about? And he said, "Dude, you do what no one else can do. You just grind." And I'm like, damn, I'm going to do it one more time. So I put my shit back and I start pounding the phone again and it hits. And I just keep going. It hits, it hits, it hits. So I go from nothing, making nothing, 15 grand, if that, on that minimum wage to making $25,000 commission check, 17,000, made 250 in 6 months, the last 6 months of that year. And I just start putting it in real estate. Then I hit 300, 350, 400, 500. In that space, I went all the way up to $1.5 million. But I act like I was broke. Everybody around me, because I was driving this car. So I'm making at that point in time, it was about $500,000. I'm driving a van. No, that time I was driving the same car that I had showed up in. You know, I had a Mako paint job, literally a $199 Mako paint job on it, no air conditioner. And I'm making $500,000 more, the tops of even that firm. And that firm is well regarded nationally, et cetera, et cetera. And one guy said, "Hey, when are you going to buy a new car?" I'm tired of looking at that shit. I said, "Dude, you know why I drive this car? Because I can." So I broke, um, just piled it in real estate, and I was buying one house at a time. Okay. And I was buying them all on the HUD repo, and I figured out the formula. And I'll go, let me take a step back because this is important, is that after that first house that I bought, that agent had done nothing other than fill out the agreement. Didn't show the house, didn't do anything. And she got paid $5,000. And to me, I'm like, gosh, damn, $5,000. That's like a ton of money. Right.
And you're grinding how many hours at this job?
Well,
And you're like, I could just.
This is when I was selling the meat door to door. So this.
I know. I'm just saying, like, this is like, that mindset of like, that's not even anything. Like, you know what I mean? You did so much less work for this.
She didn't do anything. And so I'm like, I'm not paying these damn people again. So I go get a real estate agent's license. And so now I can submit at 1:00 in these offers, 1:00 in the morning in my underwear. And one tidbit, they make you put an earnest money check and send it in. Well, I Xerox copy I used the same damn money orders that I used for 5 years. Because I'd send them in. And the way I did that is that, so I would look online because I'm working at this job, right? And I'm working my ass off at that job. So fast forward, but I'm online. So I'm looking at these, and I have multiple monitors up. I'm looking at these houses, and then I go look at everything that I can find online and on paper, right? Then I'd submit the bid.
If you're a new or newer real estate investor looking to launch or grow your real estate investing business, please check out Investor Fuel Club. It's a coaching community, but unlike anything you've ever seen before. And you can actually partner with members of our mastermind from coast to coast on deals right in your market. There's no better opportunity to build a consistent business than to literally partner with pros to help you avoid costly mistakes, avoid the need for capital to do deals, and help you eliminate your fears as you're starting your business. Learn more about Investor Fuel Club at investorfuel.com/club.
And I would only compete against me, meaning I had worked it down to a science where I knew the exact minimum dollar that they would accept because I'd worked that bid over and over because I have an agent's license, right? So I have direct access to it. So I kept on trying to work that bid and get it all the way down where they would reject it. No, for houses that no one else bought, so they didn't sell, but my bid got rejected. So I found it. I found the minimum. And so my mindset was 4-bedroom, 2,000 square foot, 100,000, give or take, right? So I bought some higher and bought some lower, but that was the target. And so, a lot of these books at that time, because I'd read, I had no mentors, I had no one, right? It was just me, some books, and against the world, conceptually, right? And so I'm sitting there looking at, and most of these books say, hey, go see 100 properties, offer 10, buy one, right? Some formula like that, all bullshit. And what I did is I would make offers before I ever saw the house. I would have to secure the house because I don't have time, right? I'm
Yeah.
working my ass off over here, so I don't have time. So I'm doing all the research. And once I got it under control, meaning I won the bid, right? It's in my control. I'd go look at the house. Then so what they would do is they'd give you like 72 hours to get the contract to them, right? So you had to back then you had to fax it to them. And so you'd fax it to them with the money order and that type of stuff and send it to them. Well, I was using the same damn money order. I'll just pull a copy out and Xerox. So I'd go look at the house, and if I like it, I would send it in. If I didn't like it, I just wouldn't send it in.
Yes, you're basically doing the same thing. You're switching the order around, but you're saving yourself so much time because you're essentially just seeing properties that you already have a pretty good chance at.
No, I already controlled it, right?
Well, that's what I mean. There,
Yeah.
you basically are going to get it if you,
right.
You're going to get it if you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some that I let go. One, I had cat piss and stuff like that, all the sheetrock cut. I'm like, this, no way. And the houses were 18 months or less old. And that's a key point for early newer investors. I never bought old houses because remember, I don't have time, right? I had money, but no time, money coming in, right? And so I bought all these houses on my W-2. That's how I did it. All those houses at that time on my W-2. And because I had no debt to income, I had no debt because I was living like I was broke, right? And my first house that I bought was an investment property. I've been living with roommates. But anyway, so I'm buying all these houses and I have no time. And so I got to just figure out how to handle that. And the newer houses, they have less maintenance. So I'd go in those houses. I got a picture somewhere. I did all the turnaround. I go in those houses, and for a house that was a year old, whatever, because a lot of the houses I bought was these interest-only loans that they couldn't pay when the shit shift. And I'd go in there and paint them myself, clean them up, do all that stuff. So at the time, Star, my wife at the time, and we're still like best friends, and she's still involved in all that stuff. So anyway, she would do some of the cleaning. She only did that for like 3 houses. So let's be, and then I think we had a kid and all that stuff. So I said, hey,
Sure, yeah.
anyway, so I'd go and paint it. But what I would use is a 9-volt. So they had 9-volt batteries and this pump roller. I'd turn it all the way up and and I'd hang it, and I would just roll, just fucking go. So I was turning that house around in 24 hours, paint the whole damn thing, as I would just sleep there if I had to, clean it up, do whatever I need, because they didn't need a lot. They just needed some really cosmetic. I know people stretch, these wholesalers and whatever stretch with cosmetic. No, it was just some paint and clean the carpet. Sometimes I didn't clean the carpets way back then. But then I started buying 2 at a time, closing 2 at the same closing table. And I'd have to turn both of those bitches around. So I'm working 5 days, I'd leave at 5 just because I had to go. I'd go close at 5, go straight to those houses. Back then I had this Ford Thunderbird. It was packed full of shit. other than the seat I was driving in. It was packed. I had a lawnmower that I had unfolded, it was in the trunk, all this in a Ford Thunderbird with a Mako paint job and no air conditioning. And I'm going out there, getting them turned around. And I could have probably hired people, but I'm looking at, because where I came from, I'm looking at, well, at that time they wanted $25 an hour, handyman, whatever. I'm like, shit, I'm just going to do it. So I did it. I did most of it. And I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And you just go and go and go. And at one point, I'm like, man, when are they going to start? When are they going to tell me no? Right? They just kept giving me fucking houses, just kept approving the mortgages. I'm like, man, this is too much. I'm going to take on too much. In hindsight, I should have bought more. Right? Because I was buying these things for 100,000, and now they're, knocking on 400,000.
Well, and also doing everything yourself. I mean, there's also a lesson in there of like, if you'd have been able to expand a little more, get some help in there, and that could have been huge if you'd been able to do that at the time.
That's an Achilles heel that I steal, and I don't know if that's the, my growing up and fuck them, I'll do it myself. So that's been an Achilles heel, probably when I look back on what I've done. No one's going to feel sorry for me because I'm doing well now. But yeah, if I look back and say, oh, where was Achilles heel? It's probably there.
Gotcha. Okay. So you're in the thick of it now. I want to like transition to the modern day, to today. What does it look like now in your business? Like what sort of portfolio are you looking at in plain numbers? And I'm curious, how many single family homes do you still own?
Yeah, I have 26 single family homes. I have about 80 parcels of land. I started about 5 years ago. I said, hey, something's got to change or I'm going to kill myself. And I'm not talking about, offing myself unalive. And I'm saying just drive yourself where you're freaking crazy.
Into the ground. Yeah.
And so I stopped doing the investment banking. I was a CEO. So I'd go into these turnarounds when these healthcare groups, they were going bankruptcy or hyper growth, and I'd come in as a CEO and I'd turn them around. And that's a grueling process, especially when they have no money, because I'd take on the CFO's role, the CEO's role, the chief legal officer, the COO's role, the whole thing. I'd sleep in the freaking offices. And so I just like, I can't do this more. And I wanted more out of life. I'm like, is this it? Right? So I've been grinding, working 120 hours for close to 20 years. And before that, I'd been struggling and going to school and just trying to find out where do I belong in this world. Right. And I'm like, man, this can't be all of it. And then, and I have kids. And I was absent. Their mother raised them. I was home. I went to all their sporting events and that type of stuff. But some of the light bulbs go off and say, my daughter said, hey, I don't know him. And I'm like, the mom said that daughter said that. And I'm like, shit. That was an eye opener. And then my son going from a boy to a man, and I'm in Austin, Texas, sleeping on the floor, working, saving other people's kids is what hit me. I'm over here. I'm making good money, making a shitload of money, and I'm like, man, you've done enough. Right. So now it's time to switch. So I switch and I come back and take a little time off to, mental health time, if you will. Right.
Yeah.
And then my buddy, and he's the one that always came. So this guy, Chad Barham in Houston, we played football together, and he's the one that came all these executions. He came up with the ideas. His problem is he can't execute and stay on task. Right. So he'd come up. So he even came up with the real estate stuff. He brought that up, and I kept studying it. And I actually put it into practice, right? Because there's the three most important things in all of this is execution, right? You can have a million ideas, but they're dime a dozen.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he was buying land for these smaller builders, right? That would go and infill lots and that type of stuff. So he's sitting there, going 90 to nothing, how he's going to do that. And I had cash, sitting there, and he would take them, get them on the contract, and then assign them to the builder, right? And the builder closed, and he'd get a chunk, $5,000, $2,000, I don't know what it was. And so I started buying land, but with my cash. And here's interesting, and I obviously know how to research. I have 2 masters, almost a third, and I've been in research business, all that, meaning everything I had to do, understand contracts, I was an investment banker, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm researching all this, and I find a couple of subdivisions that, and these are resort type developments, and they have so there's a lot of empty lots out there. And the same developer had them. They had the same CCNRs, the declarations, right? And so I'm reading through this, I'm looking at all this stuff, and I start buying these lots for $1 and $5. Here was the key. What I found was, once you get to 5 lots or more, it's only $1 for the POA fees. So everybody else is paying 1,500. I'm just rounding these numbers. I don't know the exact numbers, right? So I'll go out and start buying these lots because people had owned them for 30, 40 years. People had paid $50,000 for some lots in a resort that has golf, has 2 golf courses, tennis, condos, hotels, all this type of stuff. Well, I'm getting these damn lots for essentially free. I'm doing all the closing myself. I do all the paperwork. I close, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, shit. So I probably got 60 of those. And then I started buying, bigger piece of land that I'd find. I'm just going to say it. I'm a real estate agent, realtor, whatever. But the bar is low for that profession, the bar is low, right? And so I'd go negotiate. People would have agents. I bought some land. They have it listed for 300. I get it for 100. And then I started buying other land that wasn't for sale. I'd go direct to them, but I'd buy it myself. Most of the people that do this stuff, they want to turn around and flip it. No, or they want to wholesale it. Get it under contract and then go sell it. No, I buy it myself, cash. So I started going looking and started just targeting and bombarding areas and buying the land myself and just holding on to it, and get it for a substantial discount. Some people didn't even know where the land was because they had inherited it. I bought some land in Little Elm, Texas, probably 15 years ago. And I paid $4,000 for one lot, and I paid $5,000 for the lot next to it. Well, I sold those lots here about 2 years ago for $100,000. Land, it appreciates much more aggressively than single family homes. But the challenge is that it eats money, right? If you rent out in income producing houses, it pays you. And the worst case scenario, you have to supplement it $100 or $200 a month, right? Well, land typically not income producing, but you still have taxes. Sometimes you have HOA fees, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So it eats money. So you got to get it. You got to have money to be able to play that game, right?
Gotcha.
And so I'm in the position now where I can play that game.
Gotcha. Okay, so this is really great. We're winding down a little bit. I just have a couple more questions for you. One of them is, have you gotten any better at, you said this is your Achilles heel. Have you gotten any better at outsourcing and bringing in help and things like that? Because you said you're very hands-on, which makes me think you maybe haven't.
I have not. And I wish, because that's how I'm going to get out. Meaning, so right now, I am updating all these properties. I bought them with linoleum flooring. I bought them with Formica countertops, and that's not entry level housing to people now. Today's society, they want hard floors and granite countertops, stainless steel, whatever. So I've improved a lot of that type of stuff one time. And some of it was, there was a big hailstorm that bombarded, I'm talking softball size, and it went through the roof into the house. Well, I GC'd all that, got all that insurance money, and I went from linoleum floors to actual hand scraped custom wood floors, granite countertops, all that type of stuff, because I put all that money, all the overhead back into the property, and it was all insurance money, right?
Yeah.
And so I've done that, but that's what I'm doing now, preparing to sell, hopefully, depending on what happens in DC, that investors can still buy, because I'd rather sell it as a portfolio, the single family homes.
Yeah. You'd rather sell it as a portfolio. Yeah. Okay. So, one thing that you brought up earlier was you said that a lot of buy and hold investors kind of leave money on the table when it comes to taxes. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. Where are they getting it wrong?
Yeah. So ad valorem tax, so property taxes. So in Texas, we have no income tax, right? And so we have higher, not as high as some states, but higher property taxes. And I spent a lot of time fighting those CADs. So I know the case law, and I'm a valuation expert, meaning as a investment banker. So I don't have this state real estate appraisal, right? I do it from an investment banker standpoint, where we know the in depths of the financial models and all that type of stuff. Anyway, so I know, so we have to go by the same standards. So I know it very well. And I know all the arguments and how the equilibrium, and the definitions and all that. So I get very deep in arguing. And one year, so it's an interesting story. In one county, I'll say it didn't county, I had like 14 or 15 of my properties there, and my house, so the homestead house was there. So and we go in and do a informal negotiation across the table. And so we're sitting there negotiating, and we have this paperwork. So I go, and the law in Texas is that once the parties agree, it's not a contract, an agreement. Contract has to be in writing and signed. Agreement, just two meetings of the mind. So it's not performance. So there's different legal definitions. So once they agree, and so we had this paper, and we go negotiate everything. So I leave, and I put the paper on my desk and just leave it there. And then I start, moving around, look at it, and I'm like, shit. What they had done was put the ID number of the homesteaded house in the dollar amount. So they took the ID of the property, and they put that in the dollar amount, and we execute so it's in writing, we both sign it. And I'm like, shit. I caught that, and I look, and I go online, and they have another value. And I said, hey, I think y'all made a mistake, and I'm slow playing it. It's in writing. I already read the law, already read the case laws and all that. So I already was way ahead of them. And they fought that shit and fought it all the way to Attorney General. They had their lawyers. It got so funny where I'd pulled the Freedom of Information Act. I pulled the contract with the lawyer. That guy was getting like 75, their firm. So he's a lawyer within the firm, and the firm's getting $75 an hour. So he's sitting there trying to school me on the law. And I already knew this backwards and forwards. I'd been doing this for a while, and I'd looked at all of it. And then I said, and he was trying to insult me. They think they know everything. So I sat there and said, man, how does your wife feel that you're getting less than $50 an hour? And you're a damn lawyer. And then I asked him, because this is how contentious it got, because they were battling back and forth, trying to say I was lying, wanted to put me under oath, all this type of stuff. But I didn't have to go under oath. The agreement's signed. They want to put me before the ARB. The ARB has once the two parties come to an agreement, the ARB has no play in the process, no say. I said, I'm not showing up. You can have all the hearings you want. That stuff doesn't matter. You're wasting those people's time. Anyway, so and it's homesteaded. So in Texas, it can't rise more than 10% per year. So that house, I bought it for $310, probably worth $1 million. It's probably taxed at $500,000, and the store's like that. So I probably save probably 30 grand a year on fighting them. And I just learned how to go about organizing and finding the comps and comparables and how so all the people that argued the lowest price points, I go get those numbers. And then I argue the appraisal standards, and then the supply versus the demand, because that's not equilibrium. And people have the compulsion to buy. If there's no houses, they're forced to buy that house. That's a compulsion. And so you have to adjust for compulsions. And the house, this last year, one that they had sent out the appraisal for like $890,000. Well, I argued, a pretty in-depth argument, and I'm glad they could stay with me, because I ended up with a $600,000 award, meaning I went before the board, ended up with 600,000. So think about that. That's probably $7 grand on one house. So that's $7 grand that I saved on one house or one property. And it takes a long ass time. Now
Yeah.
it's a beating when you have 100, land and houses. It's a beating.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, you compound that over how much you're doing. I mean, that starts to really
Year
add
over
up.
year,
So,
because the rule
yeah.
says that they uh, so the burden of proof shifts and gets harder if you beat them the year before. So they have to have, I don't know, remember off the top of my head the burden of proof, but they have to have much more argument, much more evidence to prove that value. And they can't get in your house. They can't, how's the house going to increase 100 grand from the year before? What's happened when this house over here only increased 20? But yeah, so I argued the one that I got from 800,000 to 886,000 to 600,000. What I argued was the original price that we paid in that year. Well, that house, that's interesting stories. A wholesaler had brought that house to me, right? And he wanted 50,000 for it because he had gotten it. That had been mortgage fraud and bank on all this stuff. So it
Wow.
went through a lot of stuff. And he wanted 50,000. I said, I'm not doing that. I said, you're not going to be able to close. So I will just wait until your contract expires. I have a realtor's license, so I've been monitored on the MLS. It was Memorial Day or Labor Day, the Friday before, and it went on. It came back on. So I run over there and look at the house. I'm like, shit, I'm buying this. So I look at the house and it's Labor Day, right? So they're not going to see my offer until the next Tuesday because Monday is a holiday. And I'm like, damn, people are going to be looking at this whole time, right? I said, but if I'm the only offer and it's a repo, and I said, these agents, they're a discount agent to get those listings, right? Back then is from the banks, so they get them in bulk. He ain't getting out. So he gives me a call. He said, hey, you went and saw that house last. Do you know where the key is? I said, I don't know where the key is. I was just go put a new key in there and the key box, right? So the key was missing. And so he ain't getting out. So here comes Tuesday. They take my offer. Right. And I paid 273 for that house. It's probably worth, I think, Zillow or one of them rough ends. I know what it is, but in case the CAD is listening, they had it listed at like 950,000 value today, and I paid 273 in 2007.
Wow. 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 See, okay, so I think this has been a really good episode. The thing I want to emphasize is I think what got you here is a combination of the hard work part and working hard at the right things. So it sounds like you were grinding away at stuff that was maybe not the most fruitful for a while. And then you realized like, hey, let me really put my effort where it belongs. So I think, like you said, grinding is a good thing if you're really making the most of it. So thank you so much for sharing all these stories with us. I think our audience is really going to appreciate it. For people that want to connect with you, how can what would be the best place to do that?
Well, I have a LinkedIn profile and it's pretty robust, and it's Blayne Rush. So BLAYNE RUSH. And they can message me through there. And if they want to ask questions or whatnot, because I'm at a point in my life so I learned all this through books, like I had mentioned earlier, and through trial and error, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm at a point in my life that I said, hey, I'm open to being, to an extent, for being 2 or 4 people that I never had, right? Meaning, I didn't know where to turn. I didn't have time. I'm sitting there in my mind, I'm trying to survive. I didn't realize how much money I was making. Why? Because I just had my head down. I didn't have a money goal. I didn't have any of these goals. My goal was to maximize every moment that I was not sleeping. So I'd get up 2:00 in the morning and I'd go until my head hit the fucking table. And then I'd go home, get something to eat, and get in bed. And I just did it over and over again. I'm not saying that's for everybody. There's some prices that I paid for that, right? And I'm still paying for those. But if you want to go from homeless, broke to the 1%, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. If you look at all those guys that have done it, they say the same thing. And lucky I had a great wife, and my kids have an amazing mother. because she put up with some shit that, because think about how intense that guy has to be whenever it's all stress is making thousand decisions all the time. So she's like a saint, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a saint.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. Probably the best advice you've given on this whole thing, actually. But thanks so much for sharing all that. Like I
Thank you.
said, go follow him on LinkedIn. And for our listeners, thanks so much for listening today. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and hit subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you next time on Real Estate Pros. Thanks again.